Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. It's one of those busy days, so what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get started. We have, first of all, the title of the show today is called Congressman Assaults Move to Amend Director, Voter Education Project, and the second subject is Voter Education Project on Enabled Capitalism. Congressman Bob Gibbs, I think he is the Republican from... I believe he's a Republican from Ohio. I'm sure I will be corrected if I get it wrong. Apparently, there was an issue with people being pasted on or superglued onto walls. And in his own, how should I say this? I think, and you know what? I don't want to say it all wrong. Let me go ahead and say, put this baby out here real quick, because there are a few things that I am yet to get done as I set it up. We kind of started a little bit late today, okay. Anyhow, that was my mistake. Forgive me. Anyhow, so here it goes. I ran across a friend's tweet today. Move to Amend's National Director, Kaitlin Sopoci-Belknap. She reported that she was assaulted by Congressman Bob Gibbs, Republican of Ohio. She was super glued at a protest, and he ripped her off of the wall. And she intends to press charges, as I understand. She will be our first guest today. The second guest, it's about the Voter Education Project, and this is pretty important, folks. A lot of people don't understand that. Well, actually, this man, he is of the belief that Democrats just don't know what they're doing. He's of the belief that Democrats just simply have the narrative wrong in a lot of issues. And you know what? I don't think he's wrong. I think there is much to say, or there's much to be said for what he's saying as far as the narrative that we, when I say we, I'm talking the narrative that Democrats give. I think it leaves a lot to be desired. So therefore, I think the man is correct when he says that Democrats need to improve on their narrative. And so what he's going to talk about later on after we speak to Kaitlin. Kaitlin should be calling in the next 1 minute or so. As soon as she calls in and we're done speaking to Kaitlin, what we'll do then is we'll go into that interview that we did with Karl Smith. Who is Karl Smith? Anyhow, to put it bluntly, here it goes. Voter Education Project Karl Smith complains often about Democratic messaging. It upsets him that Republicans continuously give the impression that their policies are better for the economy, and with that, every single American on the show today, or rather, policies are better for the economy, and what every single American on the show today. He says, Democrats do not explain their true beliefs appropriately. He did not just sit back, he decided to do his part to inform and enlighten. So what he was trying to say is something that many of us have been saying for a long time. And that is, if you want to get the vote from people, if you want people to listen to you, if you want to be able to make the case, if you will, there's one thing you got to do. You got to know how to talk to people. And not only that, you have to be able to give the people the message in a manner that they can understand, in a manner that they can understand. So that is what that is his intent. His intent is to make sure that we as people get the message appropriately. Where is Kaitlin? Let me send her a little tweet here to make sure she's coming in. Let's see. Anyhow, it's 3:05 now. Anyhow, she'll be here shortly. Welcome aboard, Kathleen Marin Morgan from, and I always say that right, Scituate, Massachusetts. And if I'm saying that wrong, forgive me, for I knew not what I was doing. I knew not what I was saying. Anyhow, those who follow political and economic history understand that could not be further from the truth as far as who is better for our economy. We all know what the answer is. I mean, the stats, the numbers are there that prove that when we have Democratic presidents in office, guess what? They do much better. When we have Democrats in Congress, they do much better than normal. Yeah, I was just asked, Kaitlin just said, oh, am I supposed to be calling you? I guess she thought that I was going to be calling out. Yeah. But anyhow, okay, she's going to be calling in right now. I guess I kind of screwed up in not saying that she calls in. I could have called out as well, but hey, what can I say? But anyhow, she'll be here in a minute. As soon as I see her come up on that screen, I will go ahead and patch her into our system. Okay, here we go. Here she is. Here she is. Here she is. Okay, Kaitlin, are you here?
Yes.
Kaitlin, okay, folks, let me welcome Kaitlin. Kaitlin is a national director, executive director at Move to Amend. Now, that's the organization, of course, that is passing that will pass the 28th Amendment. I'll tell you what. Before we go into what's ailing you, Kaitlin, why don't you tell us a little bit about Move to Amend and what we intend to do with the 28th Amendment?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Egberto. Move to Amend is working on the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which will make clear that only human beings have constitutional rights, not corporations or other artificial entities. And it also will make clear that spending money in elections is not protected by the First Amendment, so that Congress and the states and local government can once again regulate campaign spending, so that we don't have this unlimited amount of money in our elections anymore.
Well, lucky for us, we always have you on the ball doing the necessary protesting when necessary, organizing when necessary. You do you do everything that is necessary to make sure we get this country righted from where it's at right now. But Kaitlin, you were out in Washington, D.C. at Congress. Tell us a little bit about first why you were there, what you did, and then what the congressman did to you.
Sure. Yes. So yes, diversity of tactics. Well, so I'm actually still in DC. I've been here for the last couple months for Move to Amend, working to get more support for the We the People Amendment. But as a actually concerned civilian, not as a Move to Amend person, I found out from a friend that he and some others were going to be organizing an action to shut down Congress over climate collapse, and in particular, in the House of Representatives, Representative Blumenauer and then Bernie Sanders in the Senate have introduced an emergency resolution on climate change, similar to the climate emergencies that have been declared in the United Kingdom and in Canada. And it was just kind of tossed into a committee, and Congress wasn't doing anything about it. So last Monday, a friend of mine, a colleague, said, I can't. I actually was trying to get together with him to have a meeting, and he said, I can't do it till next week because I've got this event I'm doing. And I said, oh, is there anything I can do to help? And he said, well, actually, we might need somebody else to get arrested. Can you come to this meeting tonight? So I went to a meeting on Monday night, and yes, there was somebody who had to back out. And so kind of on the fly, I volunteered myself to join them And what they were doing, these were activists from Extinction Rebellion, DC, and the plan was to superglue our hands to the glass in the doorways of all of the tunnels that lead from the House office buildings to the Capitol, in front of Congress members right before they were going to be heading over for the regular vote that they were going to be doing that evening.
I love
that. So
I
actually, when I volunteered, I didn't actually know we were going to be supergluing ourselves till after I'd already volunteered, and I needed to do a little bit of a gut check when I heard that was what we were going to do. But, the climate collapse is the most important thing out there. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old nephew, and I dread the world that is facing them, the extinction that we see, across the planet of species, the fact that it was 84 degrees recently in the Arctic, that there are fires in Alaska. I mean, it is on fast forward right now, and it is absolutely inexcusable that Congress is not taking immediate action. I mean, they should have been taking action for the last 30 years since they have known about this. And so, in the end, I was actually happy to join them. And, most of the folks were younger than me by a good 10, 20 years. These are young people who are trying to stand up for their future. Yep, 20-year-olds wanting to stand up for their future, and they had come up with this plan because they wanted to escalate the situation. And I absolutely agree with them. And the reality is that, part of the reason why we need to pass the We the People Amendment and the work that Move to Amend does is deeply connected to climate change. If we don't get corporations out of our government and out of our legal system, then any measures that we take to try and protect ourselves from climate collapse will be vulnerable to being overturned in court by corporations asserting their so-called constitutional rights. So there certainly is a nexus to my work. And then in terms of what happened with the congressman, so I was very terrified that the police would rip our hands off and that we would, suffer injury, but was prepared for that. Definitely knew that we would be arrested as part of the action. That was the plan. And what I did not expect is that the person who would rip my hand off would actually be a congressman. And
which is illegal.
That is what happened. I was, yes, that's assault. Yes, I was in the doorway with my partner, one of the other protesters, and Congressman Bob Gibbs from Ohio came up to us and tried to pass through, our hands in the middle, and we said, we're glued together. And then he looked and he went right for my other hand and grabbed it, and as he was holding it, I said, my hand is glued to this door. And he said, I don't care, and ripped my hand off of the door and pushed past me.
Actually, you have a video of that, and I have it. I was going to cue it up here, but I didn't have enough time to do it.
Well, I hope that you'll share it afterwards and that folks will share it, because it's absolutely appalling that is the response to, protesters trying to protect our future. He didn't even pause. There were other people in front of him. We were actually at that point letting people go under our arms because we didn't want it to be a dangerous situation where people were going to charge us, and so we made the judgment call that people could pass under our arms. So in the video you can see that, people go under my arms in front of him, but he wanted to handle it violently. So I actually pressed charges against him on Friday, and I don't know what will happen. The other thing about him that I think is very important is that he takes over his career in Congress. He has so far taken over $180,000 from the fossil fuel industry. One of his major donors is Murray Energy Corporation in Ohio. They have a history of suing citizens trying to protect their community around environmental and labor concerns with what's called a SLAP suit, or a strategic lawsuit against public participation, which is what corporations do when they're trying to shut people up. So there's no legal basis for the lawsuits, but it's just a way to tie up people's resources and time and intimidate them. So one of his big donors engages in that activity and actually has sued a number of Move to Amend volunteers in their capacity as environmental and labor activists as well. And so there's a direct connection to our organization and his donors. But, he's in the pocket of fossil fuel. that's who he's there representing in Washington, D.C. And, further evidence of that is that he's perfectly happy to, without even thinking, go right for violence against nonviolent protesters.
Well, I am happy that we have you holding down the fort there in Washington, D.C., and you're continuing what you've been doing for years. But you know what? With all of that that's going on, I'm going to kind of go off subject a little bit. It was just great to hear you say that the people you're working with were so much younger than you were.
Yeah, it's one of my first time. This will probably start to happen to me more and more. A lot of climate activists are younger, but I'm going to be 40 this year, so it's not like I'm an elder. But increasingly that is true. That the young people are the ones who are really standing up for this issue. That we all should be. People have responded tremendously and been very supportive of me, and I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that this action inspired others. But, they're the ones who came up with it. I just stepped in as a pinch hitter. I didn't make the plans. They had orchestrated it and had it all planned out themselves. And so, I encourage folks to check out Extinction Rebellion. They have done amazing work in the UK and in Europe to try and really escalate, because this is an emergency. This is an absolute emergency. It's coming out, we heard 12 years, well now it's 5, and increasingly it's like right now, we have these fires in Alaska and soon to be in my
Europe,
state in California, the heat wave we've seen. Right, our systems are collapsing left and right, and even the most dire predictions by climate scientists are exactly what is happening right now.
Exactly.
Basically, everything we've been hearing up to this point has been conservative, and we will be lucky if that's the way it turns out. We will be lucky if we have 10 years left. And for polar bears and puffins and whales and millions of people, it will be too late no matter what. And that is a tragedy. And so, getting arrested and having my hand ripped off the wall, that's a small price to pay. We need more of that. We need more of that from everyone. And so I hope folks will check out, again, this is, I'm not on the Move to Amend script right now, but the climate strike that is happening in September, again, called by children from across the country, high school students, and young people, calling on us to please try to protect it so there's some semblance of a livable planet in their lifetimes. And every single one of us owe it to them to do absolutely as much as we possibly can. We need to dig in with all of our resources, but we all need to be willing to escalate the situation. We need to be willing to get arrested. This is a minor thing. Getting arrested is minor in comparison to the fact that our elected officials are absolutely doing nothing compared to the situation at hand. It is appalling. And so, yes, I was just happy to have an opportunity to, for once, stand up in as powerful a way as I could, because most of the time, we share stuff on social media, we read articles, we feel sad in our hearts, and that's not enough. We actually have to stand up and fight back.
I think that is one of the most important things that you just said there. I think in a way you're kind of alluding to keyboard warriors. We need to be more than just keyboard warriors. We have to go and put our bodies out there. You put your body out there this weekend, and I think all of this in the long run paid off, and that's what we're here for, to encourage people to do what they have to do. Both in all the hats that you're wearing, Kaitlin, both as the national director of Move to Amend, who's, the truth of the matter is we need that amendment so that a lot of things relative to the environment and all of that can get passed, because we have to get the power away from the corporations. But Kaitlin, thank you so kindly for having been here on Politics Done Right. We have another segment that we have to run to, but I want to tell you again, keep up the good work, and you're welcome here all the time.
Thank you so much, Egberto. Really appreciate all you do to spread the word. And again, if folks can go to movetoamend.org and then encourage everybody to check out your local chapter of Extinction Rebellion and find out how you can get involved in the climate fight. And have a great day.
Thank you so kindly, Kaitlin. Have a wonderful day and keep up the good work. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Folks,
Bye.
that was Kaitlin. I was told I said the word wrong, and we worked together for over I think we worked together for 5-6 years as on the executive committee with Move to Amend as well. and we did our meetings all the time. But hey, I'm a kind of a phonetic speaker. You know what I mean? I am a phonetic speaker. My language is both English and Spanish is one of the most phonetic languages out there. I mean, what you see for the most part, except for very, very few exceptions, what you see is pretty much what you get. Before I get into the part of the program where we're going to talk about the voter project, I want to show you guys something. Do you know the big hoopla right now is the racism that of Trump, and every station for the last 5 days now has been going over the tweets on Trump and Baltimore and the congressman, and you know, it drives me crazy because as you can see, I didn't start this show with the racism thing or anything like that, because I don't look. As Tim Wise says, we have to hit the racism and hit Trump as a racist head on, no doubt. But there's much more to it, because Trump is going to have no power. And not only that, his words have no power. I did a piece yesterday with an activist here in Houston. Her name is, I'm getting old, you know. Anyway, a Houston activist, Keisha Thomas, who did her thing here. And she had a piece that she did a live video. And I liked it so much, I cut it up and I wrote a blog about it. And what she was pretty much saying is, hey, reporters, stop crying about Donald Trump talking about racist or racism. Stop crying about it. Report about it. Report. Go when he talks about the rats in Baltimore, explain to Americans why there are rats in Baltimore. When he talks about the educational crisis in Baltimore, explain to Americans why. Reagan cut XYZ, and that is directly proportional to the decline of the city. Let's not sit down there and, I grew up in Baltimore, and there are nice people in Baltimore. There are nice people everywhere. There are nice Americans everywhere. Most Americans are nice. Let's get off of it. Trump means nothing. Trump is an empty suit. Trump is an empty vessel. His words mean nothing. If you cry from words of Donald Trump, then you have given him worth. Donald Trump has no worth. He is a man with power without worth. So therefore, a man with power without worth should have nobody upset other than working very hard to make sure that all those people that are convinced that he is God know better. That everybody who's convinced that he's invincible know better. That is your job. Your job isn't to cry about what he says. What he says means nothing, and the mere fact that you know who he is means that you should know his words have no value. And if his words have no value, it should have nothing on you. It should. When Trump speaks, I don't care what he denigrates in Latinos and blacks and Caribbeans and whomever, it means absolutely nothing to me, because as my friend Keisha Thomas said, picture the source. Picture the source. Picture the source. So therefore, reporters, when you hear things, don't cry. Use every negative statement that Trump makes and direct it to his policies, or directly his policies and his party's policies are directly responsible for the ills he speaks about. You see? It's not about crying. It's not about being a victim. I am no victim to Trump. The victims to Trump are those who elected Trump, because he's given them absolutely nothing that he promised them. The people in Appalachia, my brothers and sisters in Appalachia, the ones that he's brought up that carnal racism deep on the inside that came out. They're fair for black people. They're fair for the immigrant. They're fair for the Latinos. Do you think I hate them for that? Hell no. I want to go ahead and give them a hug. I want to say, brother, we can't allow that guy to put this between us so that he can screw us both. Do you get it? If we succumb to what this Neanderthal is doing to us, then he would have won. then evil would have won. Let's get it right. Let's get it right. No crying. Every evil that he talks about, we make sure and put the mirror up there and direct it to some policy that he has created, some policies that his party has created to get that done. But I want to tell you something. MSNBC, my friend at MSNBC, Stephanie Rule, did something very good today. And she pointed out one of the issues with this racism thing that I think all of us should understand. And it goes as follows. Why is he doing this with racism? Is Trump... Look, I even think Trump may be too damn stupid to be racist. And that is, oh my God, Egberto, did you really say that? Yes, I said that. I just think Donald Trump knows nothing about nothing. He's just empty. But anyhow, this is what Stephanie says, and I wanted to play it, and then we're going to move on to the Voter Education Project.
President Trump's new racist attacks on Congressman Elijah Cummings are important, but they're also a distraction. They're an attempt to keep Americans from talking about other important stories and issues, like the millions of people who could lose their health insurance coverage if the Affordable Care Act is repealed, or about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's tie to the rich and powerful, or about Robert Mueller's testimony, or about how more Democrats are calling for impeachment, or about the slump in the economy's growth with the most recent GDP number lower than expected.
And there you go. There are all those issues that shows the president is a failure. And if we started to speak about all those issues, his folks in Appalachia, his folks that know him, I mean, the rich folks are going to be with him no matter what, right? The rich folks, they don't, it's not, look, I wrote a blog. I want to before I go. I'm really got to go to the stuff because it's 26 minutes the interview. But I want to show you something that I wrote yesterday, because I mean it's. I hope I can find it. If I can't find it, shame on me. But what we have to realize, I think I placed it I don't recall which. I wrote too many blogs yesterday. I can't remember which blog it is. But, just read all my blogs. EgbertoWillies.com. But we have to get in our heads that this guy means us no good. But anyhow, let's go to where I want to take you right now is I want to take you to my interview with Karl Smith. He is the founder and publisher of Voter Education Project, and that is something I want you to bookmark, please, in your browser, Voter Education Project, because it is very, very important, and he's going to be doing a whole lot of work to help us give the message in a fashion that everybody can understand. And what we need folks to be doing is sharing this information that he's putting out there as well. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get him started. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today I'm honored to have the one and only Karl Smith. Who's Karl Smith? The founder and publisher of Voter Education Project. Before we get started, Karl, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an electrical computer engineer. I've been selling something ever since I was probably about 3 years old now, maybe 7 or 8 years old, actually. And just following politics for a long time, small business owner, background in artificial intelligence, and studied just a wide range of things. So I'm all over the map in terms of my background.
It's kind of interesting, Karl, because here it is, you are an engineer. You're doing politics in that you're trying to move the political education forward. Here I am, a mechanical engineer, doing somewhat of the same thing. Is there something with engineering that we are seeing a particular kind of politics that requires some engineers to get involved?
Well, we understand technology and where things are going and the potential of things, but also we're trained at breaking down complex problems and modeling and figuring out what are the most important factors and what's going wrong, and divide and conquer, take a complex problem and look at it from a bunch of different perspectives, find out where the major impacts are, and then, put solutions together and put those things back. And so, and then also we have to sell those ideas to management or other companies or whatever that were about, presenting that material.
So in effect, I think what you're saying is that we need sort of engineers to kind of do what engineers have always done. The scientists do all those things we know they do, and we actually make it useful for humanity.
Well, it's certainly another piece of the puzzle. It's not that we can do everything, and stuff. We need lots of different types of people, but certainly like in the House, you want some engineers, you want some lawyers, you want some teachers, you want some, just the whole range. But, we understand kind of where a lot of the technologies, like some of the new materials that have come down since the 2000s, they're going to have tremendous impacts, into the future. And, a lot of them positive, but you also want to, manage those things. So there could be some problems too.
Absolutely. So now, okay, let's talk about Voter Education Project. What's the genesis of that? Why did you really figure, well, I need to start having an impact in the debate?
Well, like I said earlier, I've been selling since I was pretty small. And what I've seen is that Democrats, they have a good product. They have a really good product. They understand what people need to thrive and what our businesses also need to thrive, and our economy and stuff. And they support those things. But they haven't really sold it well. They've sold it to the people that already understand that, that when you help others, it helps everybody. But not to the people that are just on the economics and they've been kind of taught that the GOP has been messaging that government can't do anything right, that we just need to give more money to the job creators, and that sounds like it makes sense, and get government out of the way and all that. So what we need to do is show people how that actually doesn't work, and how when we invest in what our people and our businesses need to thrive, they do. And so
I want to stop here a second there, because we, even the way you are coming over right now, there's something that I want to make clear to our listeners. Too many times we abstract government. In other words, as if government is something out there and not us. Before you continue, as far as the difference between, let's say, Democrats and Republicans and what we believe in the economic system, why is it that we also have to change people's impressions of what they've been told government is? Because my contention is, let's stop looking at government as some third entity. Government is just a composite representation of us all.
Right. And a lot of stuff that we do and we take for granted wouldn't exist without government. It's us together deciding what is property, what is, the rules in which banking can even occur, or even corporations can even exist, and businesses and all of that. So without government, businesses don't create the necessary conditions for them to exist, either in policy, or in what I call our basic public investments. They need healthy and educated people. They need infrastructure. They need research and safe communities and so on. So there's a set of things that they don't do. They don't create themselves individually, that they need to exist. And they also need rules that allow them to actually sell things in other places. And none of this stuff would exist, without government. And to say that that government can't do anything right is to just ignore the tremendous economy that we have created by these investments and by having a rule system that allows these things to exist. We're the most powerful economy, in the world. That didn't occur accidentally. That occurred because people understood, or leaders understood in the past, that when we invested, when we created infrastructure, the highway system, when we created our health system, our educational system, and all of our safety nets and all of those things, and Democrats and Republicans, did supported those things in the past, and we need to get back to that, and then we can really become the economy that we have the potential of. We're just the tip of the iceberg of what we really could be.
And that's a perfect segue into your description. I think you sent out a newsletter recently titled "Rigged versus Enabled Capitalism," where I think it presents I think that one article presents the learning head of your the new publishing network that you're putting together by starting by that being one of your starting articles, not necessarily your starting article, but one of the most important ones that you've written thus far. I think it presents the case that's going to be most riddling this election cycle, where we're going to be talking about capitalism and the Republicans trying to refer to Democrats as socialists with a pejorative. So why don't you kind of tell us about rigged versus enabled capitalism?
Well, and basically it gets into what I'm calling, the GOP's capitalism. I think we all need to say that. Every time we talk about their economics, we need to say
Republican capitalism.
The Republican economics, whatever. And then we need to say, the Democrats, capitalism. That's a different. It's not that Democrats are socialists. Socialism is nationalization of our industries. It's public ownership of all our businesses, taking your business away, taking your property away and stuff. Democrats are not socialists, period. We need, I don't know, the Democrats that just kind of, throws it back on their feet. They've been called, democratic socialism and stuff. But, these countries that are called that, they're barely social. They have few little socialist, socialism things, enough to enable their capitalism, basically. So we need a little bit of that, but it's basically that, the vast majority of it is capitalism. And so Democrats are capitalists, and Republicans are capitalists, and it's just a matter of what flavor of capitalism. So the Republicans have rigged capitalism to mostly work, or primarily work for the rich and entitled and all of that. Whereas the Democrats, they actually have a brand or a flavor of capitalism that works for everybody. And if we just get the GOP out of the way, it's not getting government out of the way, it's getting the GOP out of the way, we would actually support livable wages for everybody. We would value all of our workers. That's equal work or equal pay for equal work. That's workers' rights, and that's a livable minimum wage. And that's not just good for those people. It's good for the economy. It's creating customers with money, and guess what businesses need and want? They want more customers with money. And what do they do when they have more customers with money? They hire and expand, which creates more customers with money and more tax revenues. These things create, these things are kind of the smart way of doing things versus the dumb way of doing things. Just, giving money to the top, giving money to rich, big businesses, expecting it to trickle down. But that doesn't actually speed up the economy, because if you have a whole bunch of money, you don't want to lose it. You're risk averse. Also, you don't have a lot of immediate needs, so you don't spend quickly. So does that speed up investing? That would mean that you would invest slowly, you would spend slowly. Does that speed up the economy? No. So that's why. And then the third part of why trickle down doesn't work is if you have a business and if you're basically already hiring, or expanding your hiring, you're buying new things, the tax rate on that, over time, or either now or over time, is zero. Those are expenses of the company. So a lower income tax rate is actually an incentive to take money out of the company versus leave it in the company. So for those three reasons, that's the reason behind why trickle down doesn't work. And then when you hear Democrats say, we think that that trickle down doesn't work.
Let me stop you a second, because you pointed out three things and you explained them in detail. Give me three punchlines why trickle down doesn't work. Here's what I mean. There are three reasons that you just gave there, right? And one of the things that we've always discussed is that we are not bullet pointish. We go out and we talk in paragraphs. The GOP speaks in bullet points. You just mentioned 3 bullet points why, with a lot of explanation, why trickle down doesn't work. Tell me in 3 bullet points why trickle down doesn't work.
Okay, so basically, you're risk adverse, and that means that you invest slowly. You're going to change if if you put a person with a lot of money, or you have to get more money, you actually invest slowly. You're going to look at a lot of different deals.
Bullet
Okay,
point
so
two.
point two is that you don't have a lot of immediate needs, or you tend not. People that have a lot of money tend not to have a lot of immediate
Bullet
needs.
point three.
Bullet point three is that basically, if you're hiring, if you hire and expand, those are zero. The tax rates are zero,
Okay, and you see,
and so it's actually a lower tax rate or lower income tax rate is actually incentive to take money out of the company
out of the company.
versus leaving it in.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we have to do, Carl and I'm pretty sure that you're going to get that eventually on your site, is to do just that. Have those bullet points, easy to remember points that people can shoot off. The thing about it is that progressives normally feel a responsibility to give the point and explain what it means because we want you to understand. GOP gives you bullet points and wants you to accept it on faith. And guess what? Because of the fortitude with which they tell their story, people do accept it as fact. And you would go to a coffee house and they would repeat exactly those bullet points, and then you sit back and you let them talk, and you then say, okay, could you please explain it to me, teach me. And at the point that they start to teach you is the point that you get in and in effect reverse the teaching process. So
Well,
go ahead.
and the bullet points, I mean, those are just little ways of kind of little concise ways of talking about something. But basically, it's not that the GOP only has bullet points. They actually have a lot of explanation and so on. And then, but once people understand kind of the background of those, then they can talk in this shorthand. And we do it as engineers. Doctors do it in their own area. We all do this, but also in kind of just out in kind of voter land and so on. There's kind of a shorthand that's out there. And so when people say, well, trickle down, or we're going to cut taxes, then people, or the Democrats and Republicans, that's they understand what that means, so they can talk in shorthand. And so what we need to do is do the same things. We need to have full arguments, but also those little shorthand ways of
But Carl,
things.
Here's my issue sometimes with Democrats. You just made 3 important bullet points about trickle down, where you explain trickle down economics and why it does not work. You did that.
Right.
However, when a Republican goes out and sells trickle down economics, they don't describe it the way you describe it, and therefore it's accepted as something that works.
Right. So so on the website though, there's fundamental areas, or the fundamental area, which basically explains and gives the bullet points and so on. Basically, there's bullet point forms of this stuff. There's also more explained documents and so on, because it's not that we need to understand just the bullet points, but we need to understand the background for it. But then we can, once people understand that trickle down doesn't work, then trickle down will become a toxic thing. And no matter how much money that they put behind that messaging, it's that it'll fall on deaf ears. And once people understand, how bottom-up economics actually works, then we won't have to justify, spending more on education, spending more on health, spending more on infrastructure and research and so on. We'll understand that these are investments that actually end up creating a profit, for taxpayers. They create and save more tax revenue than they cost. Once those basic principles are understood, we're not going to have to, or understood, that we're not going to have to justify, well, how are you going to pay for that? It's more of a question of how you're going to kickstart it, because they pay for themselves, over time. So basically, anyway, that we just need to get people out, knowing more about how this stuff works in a model that not a highly technical rocket science or macroeconomics, the microeconomics terms. It's just into more a basic, and that's what we as engineers do, is we create models. So I've created a simple model for people to understand, the fundamentals of our economy.
No, you have a concept that in sort of expanded when we in your article. You have a concept called enlighten capitalism. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that's not my concept. It's basically I was working on, what enables capitalism, and looking, and also enable capitalism. That sounds, kind of enlightened. And then I actually started looking more out there. John Montgomery and others been working the B Corps. They've been working on benefit corporations. Getting businesses. In like Whole Foods is benefit corporations. There's, I don't know, 5,000 plus whatever corporations out there now that are benefit corporations, and these corporations are actually looking at not only returning a good profit to the shareholders, but also looking at all the other stakeholders, the shareholders, the employees, the community, the environment, and so on, and giving them processes in which they can be judged, on these things. So we need, for really sustainable, for capitalism to work in the long run, and for all of us, we need corporations to be responsible and not just, take all the pension money just because there's some loophole or some technicality where they can. And if they're only trying to maximize the return for, for the shareholders, they're kind of required to go off and do these things that are not good, in the long run for the businesses, for the economy, for capitalism. And so we need to turn these things around. There's the benefit corporations. There's an investment group that's more concerned about the direction of the current capitalism, where that's going, because they want it to work for the long run, not just the short run. So Robert Reich, in his book, Saving Capitalism, goes through a lot of the kind of shenanigans, the way the Republicans are rigging the system to work mostly for the few. It works a little bit for the rest of us, but mostly it's just creating a lot of income inequality and all of that.
I want to stop you for a second, because as earlier we're talking about capitalism versus socialism. Earlier we're talking about whether what really is capitalism and what is really socialism. I think the current definition of socialism that I see in the dictionary, in our parlance, I think it's actually wrong. Okay, I mean, you explain the definition you gave is a definition in the dictionary. I think that definition is wrong. But the reason I'm bringing back to this point here is you just mentioned about rigged and what Reich had to say. I read his book as well, and what I think is interesting is I don't know that in the current system that we have right now, if the lobbyists for the corporations and the corporations proper are not really just fulfilling their duty, given that we've called what the corporation, the intent, or what the leaders of a corporation are supposed to do is maximize. They have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholder, which means shareholders, which mean that it is their job to maximize the profits of their shareholders at all costs. So what is it that they're doing wrong, or what is it that, or is it that what we have to do is really change the definition of capitalism?
Well, and it's just the rules by which they are able to be corporations and so on. And there's the rules are fairly technical, and they have a lot of lawyers to kind of figure out the rules, and but basically the corporations, if we maybe as states or nation, we could require, for example, all medical associated industry, companies to be benefit corporations or entities, which would mean that they not only have to take in consideration their shareholders, but they also have to take in consideration the patients and the customers, and and society and the environment and all of that. And there's processes. There's third party standards and other things built into these things. So there's ways of making our corporations actually, not just be good for that one corporation for that one moment in time. I mean, sometimes there's a conflict between maximizing profit for the shareholder today, but at the expense of really kind of screwing the shareholders down the line.
Right.
So we really, so who are you really maximizing the profit for? And plus, one corporation's value is not like in isolation. It's in the context of the value of the stock market and all of that. So if you have a lot of corporations that are doing well, not by hurting other corporations, hurting their, if you do too much damage to the system, if you damaging the system, ultimately all of these things don't do very well.
Right.
And
so
you damage the environment. Guess what? The corporations or economy going to do pretty crappy if we don't handle global warming well. And
unfortunately, they are not as long-sighted as you are. They are generally very short-sighted.
And I think that's our rules. That's the rules.
Right.
And we can change those rules, and that's where, like the benefit corporations, that's the kind of thing that they're looking at. It's more about longevity.
Excellent. Well, Karl, in coming to our close, let me ask you a couple of questions. Where do you intend to go from here with your? I mean, I love the one of your first articles here. I see that there are several other articles at your site, which is votereducationproject.com. Again, that site is votereducationproject.com. For those of you that are listening on podcasts. It's a site that you should go to. It's a site that you need to share, because if we are going to make the changes that that all of us want to make, that Karl is talking about, we have to start somewhere. So please visit votereducationproject.com. And if you have the wherewithal, don't forget all these things. We need support from all of you. So please make sure to go to votereducationproject.com and read some of the articles, share the articles, and if you have a few pennies to share to help Karl and the project along, please do so. Karl, as far as where you're going with the project, tell us a little bit as far as what you intend to do between now and the end of the primaries.
Well, the goal is to change the national discussion to include, terms like actually people like yourself to start saying the GOP's capitalism, the Democrats' capitalism, and start really differentiating, so we can, get the distraction of, well, Democrats are socialists. No, they're not, so we need to, get it refocused on what the differences between our approaches, are. And so that's, and that gets into kind of the fundamentals. So we get the national discussion to start talking about, how does that work, and how does bottom-up economics actually work? Or when somebody says, or getting these things about like our basic public investments, getting people to understand that. So we can actually, we can get candidates to start talking about our basic public investments. We can get candidates to start, saying the GOP's capitalism, the Democrats' capitalism. We can get people like yourself to start talking in that language. It's about creating, the GOP intentionally created some little terms to, that then they could, they could explain in their own way or whatever, and build up, kind of a knowledge base, out in the public. And we need to do the same. We need to have those terms at that high level about our basic public investments, about valuing all of our workers, about sufficient laws and rules and regulations and so on. So that's where we need to go. And if people will watch, also we have a video. If you go to the votereducationproject.com, don't Google on Voter Education Project. There's a bunch of that kind of thing, but there's only one, www.votereducationproject.com. You just go there. There's four main areas. There's fundamentals, there's articles, there's blog, and then there's videos. And if you go to the video link, you'll see the first video that we have up there. Now you can actually subscribe to the channel, the YouTube channel, and then watch the video, and then share that video to others. It's going to come off as not a highly political, polished political ad. It's not. This is it should come off as pretty genuine and and a good message and all that. And it's about 6 minutes long, so people hopefully will watch that. Subscribe to the channel, forward that on to their friends and coworkers and all of that. So this is the thing that we need to do, is introduce how this stuff works. Instead of kind of distracting people on things that really don't matter. And not when we're not getting the big question right and everything. So,
well, Karl Smith, founder and publisher of Voter Education Project. We know this is going to be a part of the entire project of reclaiming the country for the poor and the middle class. VoterEducationProject.com. VoterEducationProject.com. Be there. Karl, thank you so kindly for having been here.
Thank you for having me.
President Trump's new racist attacks on Congressman Elijah Cummings are important, but they're also a distraction. They're an attempt to keep Americans from talking about other important stories and issues, like the millions of people who could lose their health insurance coverage if the Affordable Care Act is repealed, or about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's tie to the rich and powerful, or about Robert Mueller's testimony, or about how more Democrats are calling for impeachment, or about the slump in the economy's growth with the most recent GDP number lower than expected.
What's happening in this country right now is our media's not doing its job. And that is why we are here. The media is not doing its job. So what I ask you one more time is to please remember to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please become a subscriber. We need hundreds of subscribers to stay alive. Please go ahead and note that everyone who subscribes get all our books. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom, which I tell you, learn everything you need to know about our economic system in an easy-to-understand manner that anybody can understand. Everybody who subscribe can get all my books online. You can read them online, but again, of course, you can purchase them at Amazon.com as well. The other book is Lose Weight and Be Fit Now. I'm doing all of this stuff. All of this is to raise money for the show. Lose weight and be fit now. I went through some emergencies with my blood pressure, etc. Lost a lot of weight, changed my diet, and this is how I did it. And this is what I'm imparting to you. And then I figured, okay, write a book about it. I can actually substitute this for the show, or not that. Subscribe to the show to get this. And the last one, currently, not the last one, but one of the other books, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. I'm writing that right now, and that's every chapter that I write, I throw it online right away. The other way you can help, folks, is this. Guess what this is? The Politics Done Right Cup. Go to store.politicsdoneright.com, store.politicsdoneright.com, and get you a cup. And we have our T-shirts there as well. I don't have any T-shirts in the office right now. I'll probably wear my T-shirt tomorrow. The Politics Done Right T-shirt. All of this is simply to support independent media, what we are doing, what we have to do. So, folks, again, please don't forget, be a part of the solution. Only independent media is going to do it. The corporate media has already proven that it will not do it. My name is Egberto Willies. You know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3.